We will now invite Neil Nicholson, May Reed, and Justin Kim to the podium, please. All right, so same format, we'll start with one of the chamber questions. The chamber question is, what other sources of revenue can the city use to decrease the burden on taxpayers? Neil Nicholson, you have 1 minute.
It's on my mind all the time, and I don't have any really great answers. We get about 8% of the total taxes that are levied across the country, and we have to try and serve all the needs of our community out of that small basic amount of tax levied really on only one base, property taxes on business and residential. We need, the Union of BC Municipalities has prepared a paper called Strong Fiscal Futures that challenges the provincial government to sit down with them and agree on finding additional sources of revenue, better ways to provide resources to municipalities. We can't do it on our own. We can't decide that we'll levy an income tax, any of those kinds of things. Business licenses are intended to barely cover the cost of managing businesses within the city. So we have to look
elsewhere. Thank you, Neil. That's 1 minute. May Reed, you have 1 minute.
There are a few things we can do. One of the things actually deals with something that's been very much on everyone's mind here, which is providing houses at low affordability. We have some land that we've set aside for affordability. I will not give it away for affordable housing, but I sure will rent it out for 50 years. And I can rent it out at a very low interest cost, which would certainly help us get partners to build the affordable housing we need, but still retain the ownership of the land and get a modest income. And I believe, as Neil has said, without legislative changes, we are really hampered to do very much of anything. We try to do fees, of course the parking fees, and they're terrible and they don't pay for themselves. We subsidize most of the swimming, parks, all those recreational facilities we do. So we are quite hampered in things that we can do to make money on.
Thank you, May. Justin Kim, if we could hold a pause in this section until the end. Justin, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I think it's not necessary to increase tax if the city is managed well. I believe it was managed well, and if you don't have money to, if you don't have a budget to spend accordingly for the expenditures, then everybody, this city will go bankrupt, right? So basically, there are no cuts to the existing services, then we're happy when the city can maximize its revenue from other sources, reduce the impact of the capital financing, and implement a moderate municipal property tax, which will be in line with the inflation, of course. I think it can run as smoothly as possible without increasing taxes. One of the creative solutions I'm proposing is encourage growth in high-tech sector so that the startup companies or the big brand...
Thank you, Justin. That's 1 minute.
Yes.
And if you'd like to pose, or sorry, Neil, if you'd like to pose a question on that subject to the other candidates, you have 30 seconds to do so.
I'd actually like to pose the original question to Mr. Kim, because the question, as I recall it, was where will you find other sources of revenue? I could have responded about ways that we could try to cut expenses, maybe pay councillors a little less, all kinds of... I don't think there are a lot of places we can cut expenses. I could have talked about
so the question
that.
is,
I'd like to hear from Mr. Kim about additional sources of revenue.
Okay, so Justin, you have 30 seconds to respond, and then May, you will also respond.
Thank you, Neil. Very good question. Some of you may already know or not know about the great infrastructure that we have in Coquitlam. It's called the fiber optic infrastructure. We have it in place. What that means is it's an ultra-fast internet infrastructure in Coquitlam. We have that. And we must take advantage of it and promote it to attract more...
Thank you, Justin. That's 30 seconds. May, if you'd like to respond, 30 seconds.
Justin, that was a very good answer. We do have the fiber optic, and that is going to more help deliver service to our community, more so than raise funds. The other thing we do is we try and stop having to pay for amenities. So we have tagged CACs onto all our developments, especially in the town center, to take money from the developers and not from your pockets. And that doesn't exactly put money in, but it's sure saving us coming out.
Thank you, May. That's 30 seconds. Now, May, if you'd like to pose a question to the other candidates on the initial topic, you have 30 seconds to do so.
I'm sorry?
If you'd like to pose a question to the other candidates on other sources of revenue, you have 30 seconds.
If anyone can figure out how we can lobby the province or the feds to allow us to put hotel taxes on, I mean, I can think of lots of things I'd like to tax, so.
Can you pose this question? Okay. Neil, if you'd like to
Well, I'm trying
respond, you
to
have 30
tell them
seconds.
that it's not in my nature to think of things to tax, it's in my nature to think of how to not pay those taxes. But, and I think hotel taxes, we want to encourage tourism. So taxation that reduces our economic opportunities is not my choice. I think broader solutions from the province, as I think I said before, allowing us access to some of their sources.
Thank you, Neil.
of
That's 30
revenue.
seconds. Justin, if you'd like to respond, you have 30 seconds.
Yes, I wanted to elaborate more about the high-tech sector, but later on, when I get elected, I'll propose some solution there. We may think Coquitlam has a great heritage.
If you could respond to May's question about hotel tax.
Hotel taxes, no, I don't have a further comment for that.
Okay, thank you. Justin, if you'd like to pose a question to the other candidates.
I don't
on
have a
other sources
question,
of revenue. No? Okay.
Then we will move on now to the public question, which Aaron will post up on the screen. And that is, we'll start with Neil. So currently, 6 and 7-year-olds have to be at the hockey rink at 5:45 a.m. due to the lack of ice within the city. What are your plans to develop more ice arenas? You have 1 minute.
I must be one of the few Canadians who didn't play hockey as a youth. But I still think it's important for us to have ice and to have opportunities for people to play all kinds of sports. The city's in the middle of developing a Parks, Rec, and Culture master plan. And unless we have a master plan so that we develop what we need as we need it, so that we can establish our priorities with input from all our people, and Lord knows we hear from the ice users. But to run out and start building arenas without knowing what our other priorities are, where they most logically would go. We don't have anything in the city center. I personally think that would be a good place to start. We're going to be faced with dealing with either purchasing or a collapsing Planet Ice. We're going to lose ice space. We've got to come up with a plan, but we can't start without the plan, and that's
Thank you, Neil.
where
That's
we
1
need
minute.
consultants.
May, if you'd like to respond, you have
Well,
1 minute.
unlike some members of council, I don't feel it's my job to sit on my duff and hope that everything comes into the city. I go out and look for it. I have, as I know the mayor knows and other folks know, I'm out busy talking to the big boys, the ones with the money, the ones that want to develop rinks, the one that wants to develop something fabulous in the town center that I can use for a tourism opportunity, and I can have giant ice because that's what we need. And that's what I believe my job is not to sit here, to go out and do my job for you outside the community. I am a salesman. I try to be. I try to get money. If I want a facility in this city, I go after it. I don't sit and wait.
Thank you, May. Justin, if you'd like to respond to the question on the screen, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I come from a big hockey town, Montreal. When I landed in 1992 there, they won the cup. So I'm a big fan of hockey. But I came to a bigger hockey town, which is Vancouver. And I support that idea. And also I agree with May. Try to look for other guys, the big names, other government levels, or the private sectors to invest. But where to invest? I've heard Burke Mountain has a Partington Creek plan development going on there. It's in the discussion, but we don't want to waste your money. We don't want to. We want to consult everybody, and we want to respect your views and your dollars. So basically, that's what I would approach. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I apologize, candidates, we're up against the clock. We do not have time for open questions on this one, so I'll ask you to return to your seats now.
Thank you.
The next candidates are Shobha Nair, Craig Hodge, and Andy Shen. So again, we will start with the question from the chamber, which is, what can the city do to create diversity in the housing market, increase market rental, different quality of living, etc.? Craig, if you'd like to start us off, you have 1 minute.
Okay, well, I think the main thing is that we do need to have a variety of housing. There's a number of options that we can pursue. The main thing is that we have to work and look for partnerships. Because this is not something that the city can do on its own. I think we have to look for partnerships with senior levels of government. We have to look to work with developers through bonus density and other options. We have to work with our nonprofits, because housing is an important thing for the community as a whole. We need affordable housing for our workforce. We need a variety of housing for our seniors. Some seniors who are downsizing their homes. Some seniors are just wanting a place that they can rent because they don't want to tie up their capital in their retirement years in housing. So I think we have to offer a whole wide range of housing choices. We also have to make sure it's affordable. One of the ways to make housing affordable is to find and place it in places where it's affordable to live. Because next to
Thank you,
the
Craig.
cost
That's
of
1
housing
minute.
is
Craig, that's 1
transportation.
minute. Andy, if you'd like to respond, you have 1 minute.
Thank you for the question. I think that Coquitlam already has a diverse market. We have townhouses, we have apartments, we have monster houses, whatever you can find in Coquitlam. Believe it or not, we don't actually own the land that they're developing on. When they want to develop an apartment building, they actually come to the city and say, we want to do this. We go forward with a public hearing, and council gets to decide whether, say, a 22-story building in the middle of Austin works over there. I think that we need to basically open up the market. There needs to be affordable housing in Coquitlam. There's no question about that. I think that at City Hall, they need to remove red tape, make housing more affordable so that you can live in basement suites, so that people can, for example, nanny suites. I was just talking to somebody a few days ago about that. They want to see their grandparents living with them and basically have their whole family together. But right now, the city doesn't allow that because, for example...
Thank you, Andy. That's 1 minute. Shobha, if you'd like to respond to the question, you have 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. Yes, affordability is a huge issue, and we need to be very innovative to have different type of housing, variety of housing, like Craig said, so that it cater to the young adults and the young families, and also aging population. Moreover, we need some housing for elderly, aging population who have accessibility issue, because I know my father was wheelchair bound. When we came here, we did not have enough houses, apartment building which had a bigger bathrooms and also that he can maneuver the wheelchair. So we really need to cater to different demographics, and also I feel affordability is not only an issue in this municipalities. It's our neighboring municipalities also have that issue. We need to work together to put pressure on the higher level.
Thank you, Shobha. That's 1 minute. Greg, if you'd like to pose a question on what the city can do to create diversity in the housing market to the other candidates, you have 30 seconds to do so.
Yes, I'll ask Andy, what do you think the role is of the city and other levels of government? What do you think that we can actually do to address the problem?
Thank you, Greg. Andy, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Craig. I think that the role of the city is not to build, is to plan. The city often gets confused, and they start with construction projects. And for example, Quarry, the city built that, and you get cost overruns. If we leave it to the private sector, that's their problem. And if there's cost overrun, they have to basically write it off, because it's not our fault that they overestimated. I think that the city would...
Thank you, Andy. That's 30 seconds. Shobha, although it wasn't directed, if you'd like to respond, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I feel city has a very limited resources for that, and I don't think the city has a responsibility. But however, city can play a role in, again, working with a higher level of government, or putting pressure on it, or maybe negotiating with them.
Thank you, Shobha. Andy, on the subject of what the city can do to create diversity in the housing market, you have 30 seconds to pose a question to the other candidates.
Okay, my question is going to be about affordable housing. Now for Shobha, your biggest endorser, MP Finn Donnelly, wants to basically take money from the rich to give to the poor. Do you agree that that's the way that affordable housing should be built in Coquitlam?
Shobha, you have 30 seconds to respond. Shobha.
If you say,
Shobha.
The federal NDP strategy is basically to tax the rich to give money to the poor to subsidize their housing. Do you think that should be in Coquitlam? Do you think that we
Andy,
should take...
thank you. Andy. Shobha, you have 30 seconds to respond to the question as you understand it.
actually, I don't have any response to that. I don't think you need to tax the rich to fund the poor.
Okay, thank you, Shobha. Craig, if you'd like to contribute to that, you have 30 seconds to do so.
No, I think there's a role for developers to play in this. Certainly, if they're knocking down buildings and we're losing some of the affordable houses, particularly up in the Cottonwood area, where we're going to lose 10% of the affordable housing, 10% of the rental in the whole Tri-Cities, we have a chance to potential to lose that. So I think that when developers come in there, and not just the ones who build on that piece of property, because they shouldn't be penalized, but I think all developers, as they build, should contribute.
Thank you, Craig. That's 30 seconds. Thank you very much. Shobha, if you'd like to pose a question on what the city can do, 30
I
seconds.
have a question for Andy. What's your plan to accommodate displaced renters? Displaced renters.
Displaced renters?
Yes.
Thank you, Shobha. Andy, you have 30 seconds to respond to the question.
I think that for displaced renters, we need to make it more convenient for them to stay within the city. But we're not going to subsidize those people if they can't live here. There's a lot of housing in Port Coquitlam, Port Moody that they can stay in. In fact, on Burke Mountain, I'm not saying Port Moody is poor, but I'm just saying they have cheaper units. We have lots of affordable housing on Burke Mountain, and lots of those are up for rent. It's up to the renter to decide where they want to stay. I can't force them to...
Thank you, Andy. That's 30 seconds. Craig, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have to do is never again allow a heavy concentration of one type of housing in one area. And this is the problem we're facing in Coquitlam right now, is with the one building coming down, we're losing a big chunk of our housing. So I think what we need to do is we have to look for areas throughout Coquitlam, throughout the Tri-Cities, areas where it's affordable to live, areas where it's near a transit line, where it's near shopping, so that people don't have to have a car to live in those areas. And I think by doing that, we create diversity throughout our community, and we don't
Thank you,
burden
Craig.
one
That's 30
neighborhood.
seconds. Okay, we have time for one public question, so we'll bring that up on the screen. So Craig, if you'd like to start, have you received significant campaign funding from local unions? Will you recuse yourselves from votes involving union contracts? If not, do you consider it a conflict? You have 1 minute to respond to the question.
Okay, so I'm being endorsed by about 30 different sports groups. I'm being endorsed by a number of different groups, probably more endorsements than any of the other candidates. I'm also being endorsed by the local union of CUPE, and I'm also being endorsed by the firefighters. But I'm being endorsed as an independent candidate. I believe that I'm somebody who brings balance to council, and I think that's reflected in the balance of my funding. The question is significant funding? No. Less than 5% of my total funding is going to come from unions. In fact, none of my funding, no single source is going to donate more than 10% to my campaign, because I want to make sure that I receive balanced funding so that I'm not placed in a conflict where I'm beholden to one specific group or developer or somebody else. And I think the key is just to have balance.
Thank you, Craig. Andy, you have 1 minute.
That's a great question. No, I have not received any campaign financing from CUPE or any other labor unions. In fact, I would be the last person out of everybody here that they would endorse.
If we can hold applause, people. If we can hold applause, please. Thank you, Andy.
I work for a Conservative Member of Parliament, and we stand up for the hardworking taxpayers of Coquitlam. Not CUPE, not PSAC, not any other labor union. We stand up for you, the taxpayers.
And if you can remember to focus on the question, please, whether or not if you are funded, you will recuse yourself.
And because I stand up for the taxpayers, I'm not going to be in a conflict of interest because I represent you, not any other associations. And that's very important in our government.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Shobha, you have 1 minute to respond to the question.
Yes, I had an endorsement from CUPE. However, also got endorsement from developers. So I don't, just because I got it from QP, I don't have to be, I'm not entitled to them at all. I'm only answerable to the public, Coquitlam citizens, because they are the ones who's electing me. They believe, the QP is giving me endorsement because they believe in my vision. They believe in our team's vision. They want the best, they want the best Coquitlam. So, and what's the next question? Yeah, I don't think it's a conflict. Same way, just because builders endorse me, I'm not going to support all the, their projects. That's all.
Thank you, Shobha. Once again, we are up against the clock. We'll invite a round of applause for the candidates. If you return to your seats. Next, we have Jack Tremley, and Terry Towner. I apologize, Mo Kapari is not here, so it will just be the two candidates. So again, we will start with the chamber proposed question, which is, do you support incineration in Metro Vancouver's solid waste management plan? Terry, if you'd like to start us off, you have 1 minute.
Do I support Metro Vancouver's incineration plan?
Do you support incineration in Metro Vancouver's solid waste management plan?
Do I support incineration? That's one thing I haven't done a lot of research on, but in a nutshell is no. From what I'm hearing, that isn't something that the region wants. I think we want more waste to energy or other options, but my attitude is I'm not an expert in everything yet, but I'm passionate about finding the best solution and talking to the people who are the experts, talking to the residents, talking to Metro, talking to everybody involved to come up with the best solution for that issue. So to answer, what do I support it?
Yeah.
If that's the route that is decided is the best route to go, then sure. If not, no. But we have to talk to the experts and talk to everybody involved.
Thank you, Terry. Jack, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well, I've talked to the experts. I don't support it at all. It's gasification. The gasification goes to the atmosphere and it's bad for your health. Pretty right side up there. We have a company coming into Coquitlam who wants to open up a recycling group. They want to create 80 jobs in Coquitlam. They want to throw their own money in, so there's no risk to the community. Metro wants to spend $500 million of your money to create a gasification plant for incineration, and you got to feed the beast. We're sitting at about probably 60 some odd percent recycling. Let's take it up to 90, 95 and talk about that. I'm not prepared to waste your money on $500 million when a company's going to be out there, will pay for it themselves, create 80 jobs, everybody wins, we recycle, and everybody has a clean health of bill of health. It just makes perfect sense. Just don't get into the rest. So I don't support that at all. It's unhealthy.
Thank you, Jack. Terry, would you like to pose a question on that? You have 30 seconds to do so.
Jack's done his research. He knows more about it than I do. So what's the solution then, besides?
Well, the solution is recycling. We all got our new garbage cans. We all have a bit to commit to. It's not about a few people doing a lot. It's about everybody doing a little. And we're doing our part to recycling our garbage, our organics. I'm at home. I got 2 kids, and my wife at home is 4 of us. And once a week, we have a little kitchen catcher of plastic after we recycle it. So it's important we do that, and there's a company out there that wants to create 80 jobs in Coquitlam to do that without any cost to us. I think it's a win-win-win.
Thank you, Jack. Do you have a question for Terry? You have 30 seconds to pose it.
No, I don't actually. I appreciate you coming together on this, and I know it's a hard job, so thanks very much.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you both very much. We'll now move into the chamber. Oh, we're not going to move into an audience question. Oh, okay. While we're pulling them up, we'll remind everybody in the audience, if you'd like to use the slips of paper to pose your questions, you can raise them up now, and one of the volunteers will come and gather them. And now we will move to one of the pigeonhole questions. Okay, there we go. So what will you do specifically to work with the school district to get more schools and transportation at Burke Mountain? So Jack, let's give you 1 minute to answer that question.
Yeah, it's a hard challenge. I mean, I know I have a wife who's working in School District 43, and there's a challenge with budgets there. It's about partnership. As chair of your library board, we partner up with the school district on literacy and come together. It's not easy. At this point in time, my issue is with that Burke Mountain, it was an interesting plan and people moved up there, and I had friends who moved up there who saw this proposed school up there, and it was just a piece of paper. And they're angry because by the time the kids graduate, the school will finally be built. So there has to be decent execution and implementation by our partners, by our developers, by the school district, and by the city to make sure when we put subdivisions in and communities in, it all goes in together. And that's been the problem. It's been poor execution of Burke Mountain.
Thank you, Jack. Terry, you have 1 minute to respond.
I created a Burke Mountain specific brochure addressing these issues. Burke Mountain's been shortchanged. I think we have no more development anymore in Coquitlam, so we can't really learn from this in the future but we should have had the schools and the transit and the amenities and everything figured out first before people moved up, because hundreds of kids every day in Burke Mountain are driven off the mountain to go to school, and there's people up there that need to take the bus to get to work and the university, and there's no buses. So my platform on that is, again, it's not, we have to work with TransLink, we have to work with the province regarding the schools, and tell them that, hey, don't ignore the northeast sector. These are amenities that we need to service our residents, and we just have to keep those relationships going and keep the awareness going and work with them to get them. I will advocate as much as I can.
Thank you, Terry. Jack, you have 30 seconds to pose a question to Terry.
Yeah, so any details you have in terms of what we could do with the bus service up there, besides just working together? Any specifics?
Terry, you have 30 seconds to respond to the question.
We have to prove to them that we need the buses, give them some stats. I think it's too bad that we don't have the buses up there now, because now people have fallen into that habit of driving their cars. And so now if we do get the buses, the habit's formed. So a specific, I mean, hey, if I could just come up with the money to get the buses up there, I would, but when you're dealing with another party, no.
Thank you, Terry. You have 30 seconds to pose a question to Jack on the subject.
Do you have any specific solutions?
Jack, just a sec. Jack, for 30 seconds.
My experience over the years, 30 years in banking, is working as a team and working with the chair and the library board. It's about partnership, and it's about holding people's feet to the fire, and it's about execution. If you can't do it, you don't do it. That's the bottom line. And you got to draw the line in sand with developers. You got to draw the line with the school district. And if the school district says enough, you're going to propose a proposed school in there, then they do it. If they don't do it, then the development slows down and stops until you execute and everybody's up there happy. Right now, it's a bit of a dog's breakfast up there, and because it's lack of partnership, it's lack
Thank you, Jack. That's 30 seconds.
Thank you.
We now move to a question posed from the audience, which is, describe the ways council will engage with the Auditor General for local governments. Terry, you will have 1 minute to respond to the question.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Which way will?
Just right up on the board there.
Engage with the Auditor General. Oh, I'm getting all the good ones tonight that I know a lot about. We will engage collaboratively, and what's that about? I don't know what they're really asking there. How will we engage?
It's a brand new agency.
Yep.
Oh, it's a brand new, oh, right. Yeah, it's a brand new agency, okay. How will we engage? We'll meet, we'll get to know what the mandate is, and we'll talk about it. I don't even know what it is. Sorry, haven't even heard that word in this whole campaign.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Jack, you have 1 minute to respond
I
to the
think
question.
for me, as a bank auditor, I think it's important to have fiscal responsibility at the local government level. I think we need to demonstrate to the province that we've got our books in order, that we're running our organizations well in our communities and providing good services to our community. And we're not wildly throwing our taxes all over the place. We'd be very specific on how we focus on that. We've done that at the library. We have a $4.5 million budget, which you can increase, providing better service, as well as longer hours. It starts there, and you work up to City Hall, and you let the local governments and the provincial governments tell them what we're doing. And if they have confidence in you, they'll leave you alone, because you're running a good organization when it comes to the city.
Thank you, Jack. That concludes the session for Terry Towner and Jack Chumley.